I've got with me here my first MediaTek Dimensity 1100 powered phone. It is the Poco X3 GT. This particular model here does have a very good spec and that chipset, a lot of power for the price point. So my model here has 8 GB of RAM, 256 GB of UFS 3.1 storage. It is a review unit that Poco sent out to me in exchange for this review. What we've also got with this model is a 64 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel ultra wide, a cutout in the front screen that houses a 16 megapixel selfie camera, and we've got a 6.6 inch IPS panel on this one, 120 Hertz. What else? Well, a 5,000 milliamp hour battery with 67 watt charging. And in this in-depth review, I'll let you know everything basically it is to know about the new Poco X3 GT, all of the pros and cons after using this phone now for over a week. This is what we get with the X3 GT. We've got a 65 watt charger. I'll give you the exact time in this in-depth review. Type C to Type A cable, some Poco stickers, safety information leaflet, quick start guide, warranty card, a Type C to 3.5mm adapter, and a clear TPU case. Now the build quality of this one, it's typical Poco, feels good. In hand, it is a solid phone and it does weigh 193 grams, so it's not the lightest. Now the thickness of it, you can see here that it's not too bad. Now it's 8.9 millimeters. Now I've just got the SIM tray pulled out. I wanted to show you that it takes 2 nano SIMs, so no micro SD card support. There is a gasket around that, which is great. And then over on the right-hand side here, always on capacitive fingerprint reader, volume up and down button. And you can see the camera module here sticks out by about 3 millimeters. Now the backing material here, this is made out of plastic and they call it the Stargaze Black, Stargaze Black because it goes from silver to the black and you can see little sparkles in it when you look at it and reflect it in the light. It's not a bad finish. So they do have Gorilla Glass Victus on the front of this one, which is great. So that is the latest one from them and the most smash resistant glass there too, which is excellent. And right down the bottom here, you'll see that we do have a Type-C port, loudspeaker, our microphone. So the frame around the outside, this is plastic, but it does have a good feel to it. And then right up the top here, we have the other loudspeaker. So yes, dual loudspeakers, IR transmitter, and our microphone. And our cameras here on the rear. So we do have a 2 megapixel, which is used for macro. That's f2.4. And then an ultra wide, which is f2.2, 8 megapixels this one. I really wish it was 13. It is a bit of a weaker ultra wide. And then our main camera, which is 64 megapixels, this one right here, and a dual tone LED flash. One of our most important things in a phone, of course, is the screen. It's what you're looking at and using all of the time. Now this one's an IPS panel, 6.6 inches, 120 Hertz. It does have a dynamic refresh rate, so depending on the content, it will go from 30 right up to 120. But you can override and set 120 Hertz, which I'll be running for the duration of this review, and I've been running all the time, 120 Hertz. Why not? I mean, you're paying for a 120 Hertz phone, so that is really what you should use. But if you want to save battery life, then you can chop it down to 60. Now, I really wish they'd had the sweet spot, 90 Hertz, in the middle. I really do like that because it's both smooth, fluid, and you save a little bit on battery, but still battery life is pretty good on this model, which I'll get onto later on. So overall, the display has a lot of options we can set up here. Maximum brightness tops out at, well, they claim it's 450 nits. I'm measuring about 465. It's going to vary from panel to panel. Indirect sunlight, it's not the best, as you'd imagine, because it can't push 800 or 1,000 nits. You can still make it out though, you can still do things with the screen, but it certainly won't be the best there. Now being an IPS panel, you will notice that the colors, whites especially, aren't uniformed around the cutout here for the 16 megapixel front facing camera. So at certain angles, you can see a little bit of that. It dims around there, and the edges, you won't get that if it was an OLED screen, which it isn't of course. So all up, for the price, it's a nice panel. Fully laminated, of course, has the Gorilla Glass Victus, and that smooth 120 Hertz is really nice to have. So how's it been now? I've had the phone for a week, and by the time I publish this review, it'll probably be over a week that I've been using this phone in total as my main phone, and it's been fine. No problems with bugs. I haven't seen any major bugs or anything like that. Now, swiping down from the Right-hand side, we've got our toggles here with MIUI 12.5. And then on the left, all of the notifications. They all come through, and I've intentionally left a few there just so I can show you in the video that things pop up. We get the little dots there to tell us that we've got notifications for the apps, and everything is very smooth. 120 Hertz, it really runs great, and I can't bring that through in this video because I'm recording only in 30 frames per second, but very good performance. There is one thing that baffles me with this phone though. This is a European model. I've got the European ROM, the global ROM, LTE band 20. Now I've checked the spec sheet, LTE band 20 is missing, and I'm stuck on 3G. Normally, sometimes on 5G that works okay, but without LTE band 20, it's a little bit of a concern for a lot of European countries use this band, especially here in Spain as well. For me to get good 4G speeds, I do need LTE band 20, and it's sorely missed, so don't understand their reasoning to go with a modem with this one, with the Dimensity 1100. Performance-wise, the Dimensity 1100 is excellent. I mean, take a look at this. Wireless speeds are flagship performance here. We're talking about €1,000 phones, $1,000 phone, same level of wireless performance here. At the spot I always test downstairs, excellent performance. Over a gigabit speeds is just great, really good. Now the GPS works great with a good average signal strength, 1 meter accuracy, beating the Qualcomm chips. They don't have that restriction. They can actually get an accuracy of 1, which is good. And we do have another blunder here, but this should be fixed. So Widevine security level 3, not 1. So Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, Disney Plus in standard definition until this is corrected. And Amazon will probably also need approval. They need to whitelist this phone, which they eventually, hopefully will get around to doing before we even get full HD with Amazon Video. Internal storage speed. So UFS 3.1, 256 gigabytes. This is impressive. Look at the sequential speeds here and those randoms. Really, really good. For a phone of this category, this price point, that is great. So it is really, that's flagship performance like the wireless. And the chipset itself is really kind of flagship performance. Take a look at the GPU scores we're getting here. CPU might not be as powerful, but that GPU is good. Memory core scores there, and the UI, overall almost 600,000 with Antutu version 9 is an excellent score. Now, charge time, 52 minutes to go from 2% to 100 for a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. That's actually good. Not bad. Anything under an hour there, that's a good charge time for me. And the battery life at 120 Hertz, this is a fixed looping test. I compare this with all phones I review with the same 200 nits of brightness. A 10-hour result isn't actually that great for 120 Hertz. Bloatware, however, like pretty much all brands, there's a lot. So I counted about 26 or 27 applications, 2.6 gigabytes almost of bloat. Now it's very easy to uninstall. You go into settings and you can select it all then. You go through settings, applications, uninstall. It takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you can remove it all. But hey, it's there, and I just wanted to point that out. And then we've got an Android security update, security level of June here, which is good to see. And free available storage, around about 225 gigabytes on this top spec model. Now, if you want to use 3.5 millimeter tech, unfortunately, you are going to need that, the adapter. So Type-C adapter, and it's sorely missed still. A 3.5 millimeter headphone jack would have been great on this. So audio quality Type-C, it seems good. Kind of typical Poco there. And what about the loudspeakers? To me, the loudspeakers, they sound good, but they could be a little bit louder. I also wanted to mention haptics. Haptics is okay. And the call quality is fine too. But here's the loudspeakers now. So from the top and the bottom down here at 100% volume. And then gaming, ever so popular title here, PUBG. The options we get with the frame rate, if you have it on HD or balance, it's ultra only. Now, if you put it onto smooth, which is what I will test out now, we do have then the extreme frame rate option. Now, no surprises here that PUBG runs very smooth. It's fluid and no noticeable lag at all. Now, it's not the most demanding settings. In fact, I've got it on the lowest visuals here, but the highest frame rate. So the performance is really to be expected here. It's not exactly pushing this Dimensity 1100 that hard, but I will test out a game now that is very demanding. I have the graphics now on the maximum setting, so it's set to highest possible and 60 frames per second, and it plays really well, but I have been really playing only for about 10 minutes at the moment, and I can already see that the frame rate has dropped down a little bit. Before it was around 50 frames per second, it's now 49. Now it's getting back up to 50 there. It is getting a little warm, but this performance is, a little stutter just then, is really flagship gaming phone performance here. Very, very good to be able to run this game on the absolute top settings. So what I'll do now is I will play this for 1 hour and report back on the thermals. Just how hot is this phone going to get? So on the rear, we're looking at, after 1 hour of gaming, it's currently here 48 degrees, but I've seen hotter. I've seen 51 degrees Celsius on the rear. Flipping it over, it does feel quite warm. The screen, just in this area, you can see quite a hot patch there, and that has gotten up to 49 degrees Celsius. It's currently 47. Now, it did pop up saying that it was overheating the device and that Wi-Fi GPS was going to be restricted. And once it did that, the temperatures did lower down a little bit. But a gaming session for 1 hour on this phone with a very demanding game here like Genshin Impact at the maximum settings, it's going to get hot. Moving over to the cameras now. So front-facing video, we have 1080p maximum. Now the audio bitrate is good. It's 256 kilobits per second, which is great, but look at this. There is no electronic image stabilization with the front-facing camera here, so it shakes all around, and you really do need a gimbal to get nice smooth footage with this. So we do hope that with a firmware update, they can at least add some electronic image stabilization. So we have 4K 30 frames per second with electronic image stabilization maximum. So there's no 4K 60 frames per second with this phone. I hope that they might be able to actually add that with a firmware update. Now the electronic image stabilization I've had a look at on my PC. I think it's okay, but I do think some of the Qualcomm chips tend to be a little bit better there, or just slightly better optimize the electronic image stabilization. So I'm just going to jog ahead a little. And you can see there are a few little shakes coming through. Now when you pan around, sometimes you see some of that also common electronic image stabilization judder come through. And now ultra-wide video, if you do shoot ultra-wide video, it's 1080p max with this. The 8 megapixel sensor doesn't seem to be able to do 4K, or they simply don't want us to be shooting in 4K with the ultra-wide. Now you notice that the edges and the quality overall does not look as good as the main 64 megapixel sensor, which is to be expected. So those cameras, I think the main camera, the 64 megapixel one, takes a good image. Low light performance, I would say, is average. The ultra wide, average. Front facing selfies need a bit of work because, as you saw from my example, the 16 megapixel camera, at the moment, the way it's optimized is overexposing, and the stitching with the portraits as well doesn't look very good. So, excellent battery life. It can run for about 7 to 8 hours at 120 Hertz, charges in under 1 hour. And the performance from the Dimensity 1100 is impressive. It's flagship level performance, flagship level Wi-Fi. I'm getting gigabit speeds on my wireless 6 router, which is excellent, and very, very good range. And then UFS 3.1 storage, which is very quick. And then the UI, 120 Hertz, 120 frames per second, very fast, fluid, smooth. That's great. Gaming performance is good, but it does get a little hot, the phone, if you game for extended periods. Well, get up to 50 degrees Celsius, I have seen. So it's going to get warm, this one. even warmer if you use it in a case. So for me, the big con of this one being based here in Europe, and it's really puzzling why Poco would release this without LTE Band 20. That is sadly missing. So I don't have 4G here where I'm based. I'm stuck on 3G. I sometimes get 5G, so at least it does have 5G support. Now there's no electronic image stabilization with the front-facing camera. We have no micro SD card slot, no 3.5mm headphone jack. That's kind of common, those two there. And no Widevine Level 1 cert at the time of this video. I do believe Poco will be correcting that. So there we go. That is really the full story about the GT. Here's the X3 GT from Poco. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope to see you in the next one. Subscribe if you like this style of in-depth review.